Red tracers came first. They curved down from 3,000 feet. The sky lost its shape. The bullets became a glowing rope, a dragon's tail. Then the sound hit. Not a rifle crack, not a heavy thump. It was a buzzsaw scream, tearing through sheet metal and refusing to stop. The roar did not stop. The M134 fired 6,000 rounds a minute, 100 bullets every second. Over the Vietnamese jungle, that burst changed the fight. It came from 6 rotating barrels, bolted to helicopters, and driven by an external electric motor. The US military took a Civil War-era Gatling idea, scaled it down, and put it back in the air. Men heard the sound before they saw the tracers. The Viet Cong called it the Dragon. That was the old Gatling principle returned to the sky. It turned a helicopter into a suppression weapon. Some men stopped firing. Some prayed. The firing did not stop there. The jungle was too thick for tanks, and the roads were kill zones. The Bell UH-1 Huey answered with fast insertion and fast extraction. It was turbine-powered, fast, and built for movement. But the machine paid for that speed. Thin aluminum skin, exposed fuel tanks. The approach stayed slow and exposed. In those 11 minutes of landing and takeoff, the Huey came in low and vulnerable. At about 15 meters up, the attack started. The Viet Cong waited for the landing run, then opened up from 3 sides with AK-47s, RPDs, and heavy machine guns. Abort and leave the troops pinned. Push through and risk losing the bird and everyone on it. Either move carried a price. That was the trap. The door gunners had M60 machine guns. Only the visible strip mattered. The rest kept firing anyway. Then the gun jammed hard. An M60 fired 550 rounds a minute, but it still could not silence the tree line. A door gunner could hit only the target in his sights, not the jungle around it. The .50 caliber hit harder and reached farther, but most helicopter mounts could not carry it. Both guns shared the same flaw: gas-operated action, and one dud round could stop the weapon. Clearing that jam at 100 feet was lethal. The Army wanted a fire hose, not a better gun. The answer went back to the Civil War. 1862. Dr. Gatling. That hand-crank gun spread heat across 6 barrels. 1 barrel took the strain, and the gun stayed alive longer. 6 barrels bought sustained fire. In 1862, Richard Jordan Gatling patented the idea. By 1911, the Army had pushed it into museums. New automatic weapons had made it obsolete. Then World War II ended in seconds, not minutes. Standard machine guns could not cycle fast enough. General Electric pulled the old Gatling pattern out of museums and bolted on electric motors. The crank drag disappeared. Constant electric power pushed the design to 4,000 rounds per minute. The M61 Vulcan, a 20mm 6-barreled cannon, became standard on American fighters. But 20mm was too heavy for helicopters. The recoil was too strong. So engineers cut the pattern down to 7.62 NATO, kept 6 barrels, and kept the motor. That became the M134 minigun. The crank was gone. With the crank gone, the problem changed. A gas gun needed every round to cycle. One dud stopped the cycle. The M134 ignored that. An electric motor kept the barrels spinning anyway, and the rotation pulled the dud out, then kicked it clear. The rate ran from 2,000 to 6,000 rounds per minute. At full rate, it roared. 3 seconds delivered 900 rounds. They mounted it on Hueys, Cobra gunships, and Scout helicopters. The legend came from one World War II transport plane nobody wanted anymore. The Douglas C-47 Skytrain made it legendary.
Then they cut gun ports in the left side. 3 miniguns went in. They called it the AC-47. Crews called it Spooky, or Puff the Magic Dragon. On December 23, 1964, the first combat mission took it to a remote outpost in the Mekong Delta. Artillery could not reach it in time. Spooky arrived overhead just after midnight. This was not a strafing run. The pilot banked left 30 degrees, then held it.
That bank becomes the orbit. The AC-47 circles, not strafes. This is the pylon turn. The pilot matches bank angle and airspeed, so the left side keeps 1 point on the ground under fire. The burst does not break. The target stays under fire. The orbit keeps it locked. The guns stay on target. It is a cone of bullets. That cone became noise. And the first thing people noticed was the sound. It was not thump, thump, thump. It was a long roar, like ripped cloth, like a chainsaw. The 6-barrel M134 fed that line. No one mistook it for a burst. Veterans gave it different names: buzz, roar, scream. But once it hit the night air, nobody forgot it. At night, you could see it. Every fifth round was a tracer. At 6,000 RPM, that meant 20 tracers a second. The sound carried over the dark. The line looked solid, red, and straight from sky to ground. At Trung Hung, the Viet Cong broke contact and ran. The AC-47 stayed overhead for 2 hours. By dawn, the outpost still held. By the end of 1964, the prototype gunships had flown 16 missions and fired nearly 180,000 rounds. Americans called it Puff for the red tracers. The enemy called it the Dragon. Some called it the Monster.
Captured papers named the Dragon. Do not fire at it. Do not reveal your position. When the sound came back, stop shooting, hide, and wait for the next pass. That was the real trap. The fear lived in the pause between passes. NVA soldiers were disciplined and experienced, but B-52 strikes in Nepal still did not prepare them for the minigun. A North Vietnamese veteran later said the worst part was waiting, hearing the aircraft circle overhead and not knowing if he was inside the cone. Air Force channels repeated one claim until it hardened into legend. Spooky never lost a base while the aircraft stayed on station. Records stay unclear, but the infantry believed it.
The shift was fast. By 1965, the Air Force pushed AC-47s into production, and the Army retrofitted Hueys. Then came the AC-130 Spectre. 4 miniguns, 4 20mm Vulcans, later 40mm cannons, and a 105mm howitzer. The 16th Special Operations Squadron sent them onto the Ho Chi Minh Trail at night, hunting trucks, and official records credit AC-130s with destroying over 10,000 of them. The mission that proved what it could do came in 1969 at Phuong Hip, a small outpost in South Vietnam. Over Phuong Hip, the night did not end after one pass. A regiment-sized force kept hitting the base with wave attacks. Captain Nguyen Van Tong, a South Vietnamese Air Force pilot, kept an AC-47, a converted C-47 transport, over the outpost. He stayed on station all night. When his ammunition ran low, he flew back, reloaded, and returned. Then he did it again. By dawn, the gunship had fired 63,000 rounds in one night. Laid end to end, they would stretch almost 5 kilometers. Loading that much ammunition and feeding the gun took tight coordination with the ground. The outpost held. The NVA withdrew, and the story spread through both armies. That spread changed the night. Gunships began flying with wandering soul Buddhist funeral music and wailing voices from loudspeakers. The tapes told VC soldiers their ancestors wanted them home. The first sound came from darkness. Then the VC fired at it. When muzzle flashes appeared, Spooky answered at once. NVA units adapted fast. They hugged American positions and dug deeper bunkers with overhead cover that stopped 7.62 rounds. At night, they kept the lights low, kept fighting, and still feared the Dragon. The AC-47 Spooky was a converted C-47. On February 24, 1969, mortar fragments hit Spooky 71. That hit tore into the cargo bay. On June 18, 1968, the crew was already wounded when a Mark 24 magnesium flare, armed and ready to drop, broke loose and started rolling. Ammo cans, minigun belts, and hydraulic fluid were everywhere. Magnesium burns white and hot. If it ignited inside, everyone died. John Levitow had 40 shrapnel wounds and was half conscious. He still saw it. Airman First Class John Levitow grabbed the flare, dragged it to the open cargo door, and held on while it burned his hands. He threw it into the night. Seconds later, it ignited. He saved the aircraft and the crew, and later received the Medal of Honor. He was one of the few enlisted airmen to ever receive it.
That rescue was just one pass. Larry Taylor was flying an AH-1 Cobra when the call came in. A 4-man LRP team was surrounded, and no extraction bird was available. He emptied the rockets in the minigun. The enemy kept closing. Then he dropped the 2-seat attack helicopter into the middle of the firefight, made 4 men climb onto the rocket pods and skids, and flew them out under fire. The minigun burst had bought the seconds they needed. In 2023, Taylor finally got the Medal of Honor, 55 years late. These stories are not outliers.
That late medal marked one price. The other sat at the Huey's door gunner work, not the movies. A Huey is a light utility helicopter. The full minigun system weighs 85 pounds, battery pack, feeder, ammo can. Mounting it on a Huey cuts troop space, and some crews still took that hit for night missions when volume mattered more than precision. At the open door, the gun takes room, balance, and control. The aircraft shakes, the gun does not settle. Torque, not recoil. The spinning barrels build a gyroscopic pull, and the gun tries to twist in your hands. You do not hunt one man, you hose a grid square.
On the ground, that fire had a cost. The AC-130 was a fixed-wing gunship. Noise punched through helmets. Many door gunners came home with permanent hearing damage. A trigger-happy gunner could empty the entire supply in under 60 seconds. Training answered with short bursts and strict fire discipline. Tracers had to walk onto the target. One burst too steep fell short. One too shallow went long. The pilot had to fly the gun sight. A perfect pylon turn kept the guns on target. Exact bank mattered. Exact airspeed mattered. The biggest fear was friendly fire. A wrong position on the map could send that volume onto American troops. Vietnam's humidity corroded the electrical contacts. Dust clogged the feed. The crew had to clean it between sorties, or the next burst could jam.
In 1987, Predator made it look real. Jesse Ventura carried an M134 on his shoulder, and Terminator 2 copied the shot. That is where the man-portable minigun myth began. At 6,000 rounds per minute, recoil passed 150 pounds. The gun needed a battery the size of a car. The prop hit a cable down Ventura's pant leg, fed from an off-screen battery, and fired blanks at a reduced rate. 1,000 rounds of 7.62 still weighed 60 to 70 pounds. That weight was only half the problem. The M134 needed an electric motor just to turn the barrels. No generators, no big ammo dumps, no heavy lift helicopters. The NVA leaned on AKs, RPDs, and DSHK heavy machine guns instead. They had no rotary gun, no spooky equivalent. Soviet thinking favored artillery and simple maintenance because a conscript in a frozen trench had to keep his weapon alive. An M134 asked for electricity, belts, spare parts, and transport that the North Vietnamese could not build around it. It was an American answer to an American problem. The point was plain: give a fragile helicopter so much fire that the jungle stopped shooting. The hardware changed, the job did not. The M134D uses a titanium housing and improved feeders. It rides on Blackhawks, special operations vehicles, and Navy patrol boats. The core design stays the same. 70 years after Gatling patented it, 60 years after Vietnam, the same answer still shows up. Veterans do not talk about specs, they talk about the roar. At 3 in the morning, over the jungle canopy, that sound meant the base was under attack. It meant everyone was waiting for dawn. The tracers dropped next. The gunship came overhead. The Dragon opened its mouth and breathed fire. The enemy stopped shooting, not because they were all dead, because they froze. When the minigun finally cut out, the jungle did not answer right away. It held still. For a few seconds, there was only silence. That silence was the signal. It meant the enemy was gone. Or it meant they were still there, waiting, breath held, hoping the sound would never start again.